I am going to start today with a number, not my age, not my heart percentage, not the number of years I worked or the number of mistakes I made or the number of things I wish I had done differently. The number is 4. 4 is the number of times in my life I have been completely certain I understood what life was actually about. The first time I was 32 years old, fresh promotion, new house, Margaret pregnant with David. I remember standing in the backyard of that house on a Saturday morning in June with a cup of coffee looking at what I had built and thinking, this is it. I understand now. This is what it is all about. The second time I was 47. The firm was doing well. The kids were teenagers. Margaret and I had just come back from 2 weeks in Scotland. I remember sitting on a plane somewhere over the Atlantic thinking, now I understand. Now I have the full picture. The third time I was 61, the year I got laid off. The year the plan ended in a conference room with a woman from Human Resources who could not make eye contact. I remember driving home in complete silence thinking, now I finally understand what actually matters. Now I see it clearly. Each time I was absolutely certain. Each time I was wrong. I am 84 years old now. My heart is running at 38%. And I want to tell you about the fourth time. Because the fourth time was different. The fourth time I was not standing in a backyard or sitting on a plane or driving home from a catastrophe. The fourth time I was sitting in a hospital waiting room at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in October of 2021, waiting for a doctor to come and tell me how much time Margaret had left. And something happened in that waiting room that I have been trying to explain to people ever since. I finally stopped being certain. And that is when I actually started to understand. My name is Harold Voss. I am 84 years old. Today I am going to give you 7 things I thought I understood and what I actually learned about each one when I finally stopped being certain I already knew. I am counting down from 7 to 1. The last one is the one that will stay with you. Before I begin, I need to ask you something. What is the one thing you are most certain about right now? The belief you hold most tightly? The thing that feels so obviously true that you have stopped examining it? Write it in the comments. Do not think about it. Just write the first thing that comes. I want to come back to that at the end. Number 7. I thought I understood success. For 30 years, I defined success the way most men of my generation defined it. Title, income, stability, the ability to provide for your family without lying awake worrying about the numbers. I achieved all of it. And at 61, when the firm eliminated my position, I discovered something that should have been obvious but somehow was not. Everything I had built my identity around could be removed in a 45-minute meeting. The title disappeared. The income stopped. The stability I had spent 30 years constructing evaporated the moment someone decided my position no longer needed to exist. What remained was exactly what had been there before any of it started. Me, Margaret, the kids, the relationships I had either built or neglected over the previous 3 decades. That was it. That was what was left after everything else was taken away. And here is what I eventually understood about success that I wish I had understood at 32 standing in that backyard. Success is not what you accumulate. It is what remains when everything accumulated is taken away. By that measure, I was more successful than I had given myself credit for, and less successful in the ways that had consumed me for decades. Number 6. I thought I understood strength. I spent my entire adult life performing a version of strength that I now understand was actually a very sophisticated version of fear. I did not ask for help. I did not admit when I was struggling. I did not show vulnerability to my children or my colleagues or even to Margaret in the early years of our marriage. I carried everything internally, I processed everything privately, I presented a surface to the world that was controlled and capable and unbothered. I thought that was strength. What it actually was is this. I was terrified that if I let anyone see the parts of me that were uncertain or frightened or lost, they would stop trusting me, stop needing me, stop seeing me as the man I had worked so hard to become. So I hid those parts for decades. And the hiding cost me the kind of closeness that only comes when two people have seen each other's frightened parts and stayed anyway. Margaret saw mine eventually, in the hospital, at the end, when there was nothing left to perform and nowhere to hide, and the frightened parts were all that was left. She took my hand. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Real strength is not the absence of fear. Real strength is letting someone who loves you see the fear and trusting that they will stay. I learned that 50 years too late. Number 5. I thought I understood time. This one is almost too simple to say out loud. I thought I had more of it than I did. Every single person who has ever lived has thought this. It is possibly the most universal human mistake in the history of human mistakes, and knowing that it is universal does not make you immune to it. You still feel it. You still live as though the supply is essentially unlimited, as though there will always be another Tuesday, another chance, another conversation you can have tomorrow instead of today. I am not going to tell you to live every day as though it is your last. That is not practical, and it is not how human beings actually function. What I am going to tell you is this. Pick one relationship, just one. The one that matters most to you. The one you have been meaning to invest more of yourself in when things settle down. And treat that relationship as though the supply of time you have with that person is genuinely limited. Because it is. It always was. You just did not feel it yet. Number 4. I thought I understood fatherhood. I thought being a good father meant providing a stable home, good schools, financial security, the absence of the kind of worry I had grown up with. I gave my children all of those things. What I did not give them was enough of my actual attention. My genuine curiosity about who they were becoming, my presence at the unremarkable Tuesday evenings that turned out to be the evenings they needed me most. I gave them a good life, and I was largely absent from it. David learned to nod instead of protest. Claire learned to make herself smaller in conversations with me so as not to take up too much of my limited attention. My youngest Thomas learned to come to Margaret for everything, because coming to me meant being fit into a schedule. I did not know any of this until they were adults. David told me about the nodding 2 years ago on the phone. He said it matter-of-factly, not as an accusation, just as a thing that was true. He said, "Dad, I spent most of my childhood learning not to need things from you because needing things from you was disappointing. I did not say anything for a long time after that. Then I said, 'I know. I am sorry,' he said. 'I know you are.' That conversation cost both of us something, and it gave both of us something too. Fatherhood is not a provision. It is a presence. Those are not the same thing, and I spent 20 years confusing them." Number 3, I thought I understood marriage. I thought a good marriage was built on loyalty and provision and the absence of betrayal. Stay faithful, pay the bills, do not leave, show up. Margaret stayed with me for 51 years, so by my own definition, we had a good marriage. But here is what I eventually understood about marriage that I did not understand for most of the time I was inside one. A marriage is not a structure you build and then maintain. It is a living thing. It needs to be chosen again constantly. Not once at an altar in front of people who came for the food. Not once when you buy the house or have the children or make it to 25 years. Constantly. Every ordinary Tuesday, it needs to be chosen. Every time you put the phone down and look at the person across from you and decide that what they are about to say matters more than whatever is on the screen. Every time you reach across the space that has grown between you and close it before it becomes permanent. Margaret chose me constantly for 51 years. I chose her when I remembered to. That is the honest version. That is the version I wish I had understood at 28 standing at an altar instead of at 84 sitting in a waiting room. Number 2. I thought I understood regret. Before the hospital waiting room, I thought regret was about the things you did, the mistakes you made, the wrong turns, the moments of weakness or selfishness or cowardice that you could identify and catalog and carry as evidence of your failings. That is not what regret actually is. Regret is about the things you did not do, the conversation you did not have, the door you did not knock on, the trip you did not take, the person standing in the kitchen telling you something important while your back was turned and you were already thinking about tomorrow. The undone things. Those are the ones that find you at 2 in the morning, not the things you did wrong, the things you did not do at all. I have made peace with most of my mistakes. I have not made peace with the gaps, the places where something should have been and was not, where I should have been and was not. I do not know if I ever will, and I think that is actually all right. I think some gaps are supposed to stay gaps, not to punish you, but to keep you honest about what a life is and what it costs and what it asks of you when you are still young enough to answer. Number 1. Now, here is where I have to tell you something I did not plan to say today. I started this video by telling you about 4 times I was certain I understood what life was actually about. I told you the 4th time was different, that I finally stopped being certain in that hospital waiting room. I have been leading you toward a revelation, a final lesson. The thing I finally understood after 84 years that makes all the other things make sense. And I have to be honest with you, I do not have it. I sat in that waiting room and I stopped being certain, and what replaced the certainty was not wisdom. It was just openness, a quiet willingness to stop insisting that I had the answer and start paying attention to what was actually in front of me. Margaret came out of that appointment and she sat down next to me and she took my hand and she said, 8 weeks, Harold, maybe 10. And I did not say anything wise. I did not say anything that would make a good ending to a video. I just held her hand, and I paid attention. And that is the only thing I know for certain now. Not a law, not a lesson, not a numbered point with a takeaway. Just this: pay attention, pay, to what is actually in front of you, right now, while it is still there. I want to come back to what you wrote in the comments at the beginning. The thing you said you were most certain about. Look at it again. I am not telling you it is wrong. I am asking you to hold it a little more loosely, because the things I held most tightly were the things that cost me the most when life eventually loosened my grip on them. Hold the people you love tightly. Hold everything else a little more loosely. That is all I have got. Leave me a comment. Tell me which number hit you hardest today. Tell me what you are holding too tightly. I read every single one. And if someone you know is standing in a backyard or sitting on a plane right now, absolutely certain they have finally figured it out, send this to them. Not to take the certainty away, just to sit beside it. Subscribe. I will be back next week, while I still can.